Hey, everybody. Tim Miller from the Bulwark here with Jonathan Victor Last, our editor, and then our kind of honorary editor, Bill Crystal. Hope everyone is doing as well as Vladimir Putin is today. That guy had a shit-eating grin on his face. We decided to jump on. We had a live plan for post-press conference, but I don't know, the scenes from Alaska had us riled up enough that we decided that this deserves a pregame and a postgame. The United States literally rolls out the red carpet.
American soldiers.
Do we have that video? American soldiers literally rolling out the red carpet for the murderous dictator, Vladimir Putin. And he walks down the red carpet. Here we go. He walks down the red carpet to Donald Trump, clapping for him.
Just clapping. Standing, waiting, clapping, waiting.
Cheering for him. I understand sometimes you have to meet with bad people, meet with adversaries when you're a president. I don't really understand the need for a red carpet and a cheering section from the president of the United States. And then they get in the beast. We'll maybe show that in a second. Bill, you actually had to plan these sorts of summits back in the day. What did you make of what we've seen here?
I don't know. I'm seeing this for the first time because I've been at this conference here in D.C. all day. Occupy DC. It's great. I have confidence in Trump. I think he's going to really bargain tough, watch out for the brave people of Ukraine fighting for their freedom. He'll stick it to Putin, so don't be fooled by that kind of pathetic spectacle of inviting him to the United States, a war criminal, a guy who's not been invited anywhere decent, really, right, in the world, because he's banned correctly after this unbelievably brutal invasion of Ukraine. But it's good to have him here on U.S. soil. Good to have, as Jonathan said, U.S. soldiers rolling out the red carpet. Good to have Trump clapping. And it's all part of a plan. Trump's going to really take it to the cleaners. I really have confidence.
Yeah. If you have any doubt, I don't know, if you have this image here, pull it up. But if not, it's fine. People can imagine it in their mind's eye. Then they get off of the red carpet into the beast. Vladimir Putin is invited into the beast. Okay, we got a video here. And you can, if you really look in there, you're going to see a shit-eating grin. Look at this guy. A shit-eating grin on the face of Vladimir Putin as he has a one-on-one ride with the President of the United States in our motorcade there. They'd canceled, I guess, what was going to be a one-on-one meeting. So I guess this was the private session in the limo there. And then they added it into a 3-on-3 session where Trump brought along Marco Rubio and his outer borough real estate buddy Steve Witkoff. So JVL, what has been your reaction of what we've seen so far?
I look, you do have to meet with bad people when you're president of the United States. Sometimes you even have to work with them, right? This is a tale as old as time. Yep. You don't have to get off on it though. And for Americans who don't, I find myself coming back to it isn't just that Putin invaded a neighboring country for no reason, right? Just a pure war of aggression. That's not really just it. They have waged absolutely criminal warfare. This is, in Bucha, the city of Bucha, we when that was taken back by the Ukrainians, just torture chambers, mass graves of civilians. The Russians have kidnapped 20,000 Ukrainian children, spirited them away into the Russian interior, and are basically, raising them as their own. Can you imagine what America's reaction would be to an invading power doing this to 20,000 American kids? And the president's just like clapping like a fucking seal, waiting for this guy. It is. Again, this is, could you imagine an American president meeting with Osama bin Laden and clapping like this? It's a national stain, and I can't even imagine how the rest of the world looks at this country anymore.
On that point, I want to hear from Tim, just because I'm at this sort of democracy conference here in Washington for the last 24 hours, and I actually had lunch with a woman from a Central European country that's sort of teetering between, democracy and its form of Trumpism, and she's one of us, and she is in journalism there, and I've gotten to know her a bit remotely over the years, and she said it's unbelievably dispiriting. Just to your point of how the rest of the world. So if you're on the democracy side of a country that's got one party or several parties that are kind of where we are, and one party or several parties that are Russian funded and pro-Putin, and then you see this. Now, maybe it doesn't change things. Maybe, goes away in a few days. People forget about it. But no, I agree. This is where, again, if you have to meet with him, go meet with him in Vienna or some neutral place, like, Kennedy and Khrushchev, where all those things were. And having this guy to the United States when this is his first visit to a respectable, free country since the invasion of Ukraine, right? What are it's really hard to ask I admire the Europeans. They're hanging pretty tough here on Ukraine, but we're asking them to be tougher than we are.
Yeah. Also, images matter. Donald Trump understands that. Here's the thing, and I should say, Mark, for people who are just joining us here on the live, Mark may reflect some other commenters who are like, shouldn't we wait for the summit is over to get a live reaction? And yes, we will also have a live reaction to the actual summit in the post.
Sure.
But we were sitting around watching these images and decided we wanted to react to that rather than just stewing on our couches. But Trump understands the imagery, right? And it's something I think about. Like when this is kind of a silly comparison, but just to demonstrate kind of the thinking that goes into this. When I was doing the circus, right, and we would have to interview MAGA people or Trump people, I was always like very conscious of like not being chummy, right? Like I just have to tell myself like have a stern face, right? Because like it's a natural human condition to like want to be chummy with people, and so you tell yourself to have a stern face. I was looking at a tweet somebody sent like that was defensive of Trump and like showing other world leaders having meetings, and like you look at them and oftentimes they have like stern, almost disparaging kind of like looks on their faces, because you want those images to go out in the world that like, yes, we are trying to get to an agreement here, but I disapprove of your treatment. I disapprove of the fact that you have, in this case with Putin, have invaded free European countries for the first time really since I guess some on the Soviet side post World War II, but like really the first time since that era, many decades now. It's the first time a free country has been invaded like this, and Putin does it, and you don't roll out the red carpet for him. And I think that Trump's mindset, again, this is not an accident. And I don't actually think it's because Trump like is Krasnov or whatever is a Russian asset. I think it is that Trump wants to charm him, right? Trump wants to be like, we're going to give you this fancy treatment. We're going to have a flyover and we're going to put you in the beast and we're going to treat you. And if I butter you up, maybe you'll like me. If I butter you up, maybe you'll do what I want so that I can get my Nobel Peace Prize. And so like rather than having a confrontational, stern, like we want peace, but we have these conditions, it's sort of like, well, what if I throw in some mineral rights in Alaska? Do you want some drilling rights up there? What if we invite you down to Mar-a-Lago next year? Right? Like I think that is where his mindset is on all this.
Tim, do you think we could maybe get the guys in Norway to work for us on this? Like back channel to them that if they were to go to Trump and say, hey, if you stop this mass deportation nonsense and take the federal troops out of cities and start supplying Ukraine with weapons at a reasonable clip again, then we'll give you your Nobel Peace Prize? Do you think we could do that? Would that
Norwegians,
work?
if you're listening, I think that's a good suggestion. Bill, the other thing is just like, again, the counter and how you're doing the images between this and the Zelensky meeting. Where Trump really wanted to kind of seem alpha, make Zelensky sitting in the smaller chair. They're like, he's like chastising him like a little brother. Just talk about that contrast a little bit, Bill.
No, it is striking. I mean, well, it's striking as you just said, and for obvious reasons. I guess it is kind of astonishing. Well, it's not astonishing, right? I mean, he's been kind of pro-Putin since he became president, since before he became president, right? He said it 2016. We couldn't quite believe it. It was like, really? That's not possible. Putin helped him win. If I could just repeat a point that I know you're not allowed to say anymore because that's the Russia hoax. But, Trump owes Putin quite a lot.
This is a really quick brief aside on how gross it all is on the Russia hoax. I was watching Fox's coverage of it because I was just kind of interested as I was sitting there downstairs. They had Pompeo on, and I was like, oh, there'll be a voice of reason here. Mike Pompeo, who Trump has taken away his Secret Service stat. Like he's taken away his security. Like he's tried to humiliate Pompeo. Pompeo is on Fox talking about the Helsinki meeting and how that was in a different context because it came amidst the Russia hoax. He used that phrase, the Russia hoax, over on Fox. It's like that's what we're up against. So anyway, sorry, Bill. Back to the contrast.
No, so he's always been pro-Putin, and then of course in February we all sort of said when Vance gave the speech and Hegseth was in Europe that, oh my God, it's the end of the post-Cold War era. That we're basically not on the side of democracy anymore. We're a rogue nation. We're not the anchor of the free world. So I guess that sort of subsided a little, and Trump got a little annoyed, supposedly, at Putin. And so one thought, well, maybe it's a little more ambivalent. NATO didn't fall apart right away. And most importantly, Ukraine kept fighting. I mean, that I think is something we didn't quite. Right? We really thought, and the weapons have not started up again, basically. And so this was the summer was supposed to be really terrible, and it was very difficult for them. It is difficult, but that's pretty amazing. So you have this really fantastic demonstration over, what is it, 3+ years now, of a country fighting a country, a 4 times larger country with some help from allies, but not all the help it could have gotten, taking a heck of a lot of casualties, subject to incredible brutality, keeping a democratic government internally. Zalinski lost some internal fight just 2-3 weeks ago. Probably more democratic Ukraine. The Ukrainian parliament's more resistant to executive power than the U.S. Congress. Right?
Crazy
And here we are, and no, and it doesn't even occur to anyone in the administration to, okay, we're going to see Putin, got to do it, but also let's bracket it with some signs of compassion for Russian dissidents who've been killed. Let's have, or others who've been murdered by the Russians, or something that's kind of vaguely in favor of liberty and democracy and human rights. But none of that, of course, under Trump. 2
other images. So we've seen. Oh, go ahead, Javier.
No, I was just gonna. I have a silver lining here.
Great. Let's do it.
Tim, you had a great interview with Michael Weiss. Was it yesterday on the show, on the pod?
Yep.
And he talked a lot about the decoupling that's going on between Europe and the United States. And, this is a very delicate dance the Europeans are doing, because you've got to pretend that you're not decoupling until you're decoupled, right? So you got to, it's hard. But a day like today and a show like this can only strengthen European resolve that they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Right. That America cannot be trusted as a partner, and they can't make long-term security plans around the assumption that America is their ally.
I mean, it'll strengthen the resolve of those who are resolved and want to be resolved, and think it's possible for Europe to stand up its own. It will also strengthen those in Europe who will say, however, that's a fantasy, and look, Russia's right here, right nearby. God knows where America's going. Let's cool it with the anti-Russian stuff. Let's get some of those. We could use some of the energy. I mean, I don't know. I think it cuts. We don't know how it will play. I think the Europeans so far have been more on your wavelength than I would have expected, honestly, and I give them a lot of credit for that. But I don't know, domestically over the next year or two.
In a weird way, though, Bill, I think the war in Ukraine helps that. Because absent war, you could see a sort of, well, the Russians are here, we have to deal with them. Yeah. The war in Ukraine gives them an incredibly cheap way to kill a bunch of Russian military, right? And that is what I mean.
That was the most striking thing of the Michael Weiss conversation. He had those numbers that I had not heard about, like the percentage that the Baltic, the percentage of GDP that the Baltic countries and the Nordic countries,
or something.
Some of them were up to almost, I think, 3%. A significant percentage of their GDP was going to this. I agree, and I think that so far there's been a surprising amount of resolve from the Europeans, and I think that this encourages decoupling. Again, we'll kind of see what happens. We have a couple other little data points from what we've seen so far. If we can maybe pull up the picture here of Trump. And here's this. They just put this out. The White House just put this out. I mean, look at that. like
2 super healthy looking guys, huh?
Yeah, I mean the faces they don't look like they're at the peak of their athletic prowess. But I'm looking at the smile again. It's like Trump does all this stuff on purpose. Like for the mug shot, he does that face. Like the face that Trump has on his official portrait that goes up in the White House. Is that like menacing, scary? Like he wants to project that I'm a scary man and menacing. And here, it's like he's, the type of face. I think my father's downstairs. He's going to visit. My poor father's going to be mad at me if he hears this video. My father's kind of a mild-mannered man, and not particularly excitable. Unlike me, I'm a little bit more of my mother's type. And he's a big bike rider. And back in the pre-scandal days, when Lance Armstrong was at his peak, my dad met him and they have a photo together that we always laughed about because it's like the biggest smile you've ever seen my father give his entire life was him next to Lance Armstrong. And Lance looks kind of like, whatever, at least I'm there. This is this picture. Like Trump is grinning ear to ear and Putin has kind of a wry look.
And Putin in the other.
Yeah, please.
You notice what Trump is not doing? He's not doing his thumbs up. That is a sign, which is a thing that he does in every kind of portrait, right? And whenever you see him making this smile, it's accompanied by the thumbs up. That's like his move. It's his blue steel. And this is, I think, a sign that like he knows he can't do that sort of casual thing around Vladimir Putin because Vladimir Putin is a serious person. And it's like a weird, tiny act of submission. Yeah. Like, I can't do my thing that I do. That's my trademark. I have to be serious, President Trump here.
Well, they're pursuing,
it's a weird thing.
But, guys, they're pursuing peace. Maybe you can read that there. Can you? I mean, I just want to say, you
running
guys
right after it.
They're really, peace is ahead. But they're catching up to peace, right?
It's a disquieting.
I mean, think of that. Think of working at the White House, and you're like the advance team. And they say, okay, what backdraft should we have? Should it be like the White House, the Kremlin, some kind of USSR, or something serious? Let's think of a catchy slogan: pursuing peace. As if they're both good-hearted, sincere way, just trying to get to peace. And there's a couple of obstacles somehow that cropped up somewhere, and they're going to work hard to get to. I mean, even that.
It's not exactly Mr. Gorbachev tear down this wall, I'm pursuing the possibility that maybe the Soviets will stop murdering children and civilians. I want to pull up one other. So I want to talk about the 3-on-3. This was a change today. It was initially going to be a 1-on-1 meeting. It ended up being 3-on-3. We have a video, I think, of just Putin's reaction. So for Putin gets confused. So it becomes a 3-on-3. They let the press in. They start shouting at him like, "Will you stop killing civilians?" Basically. And he's making those faces, shouting back, kind of trolling back at the press there. But if you pulled back the camera, you'd have seen it's. Oh, there we go. It's Putin, Lavrov. Not sure who the third one was on the Russia side, and then Trump, Rubio, and Witkoff, and then the translators. Who knows? We'll know more here in an hour and a half probably, and can talk about that when we come back on the backside. But did you have any initial thoughts on this Trump bringing along a couple binkies at the last second?
Binkies. That's so. I mean, Marco Rubio is both Secretary of State of the United States and National Security Advisor, and I believe he's also National Archivist.
And the National Archivist,
and a couple of other important positions. So you really should be a little more respectful.
Sorry about that. Excuse me,
Bill. What do you make of the fact that J.D. Vance is on vacation while this is happening?
Well, I mean,
that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but vice presidents don't normally go with presidents to these kinds of meetings, right? I mean, wouldn't go to.
He was with Bush. Trump for the Zalinski meeting.
Right, but that was in the Oval Office. So I'd say this is a summit, like Bush didn't go with Reagan or something to whoever that was, Iceland and all. But anyway,
Reykjavik.
But Reykjavik, thank you. I'm losing weight. But on the other hand, he does do a lot of it. If we can just say a word about Vance, this is his 8th vacation or something in 8 months as vice president, and he takes them only to European countries and blue states. And he's Mr. How it's horrible in Europe. There's no freedom of speech. I'm going to spend 2 weeks in England. It's terrible.
He's at the Hamptons of London right now.
Yeah, right. California, terrible place. I mean, utterly misgoverned. I'm going to go to California for a week, right? I mean, whatever.
The other thing about Vance not being there, and again, maybe you can overread in some of the stuff, but I just think that there's enough data points that tells you just sort of the different type of posture that they're taking towards Putin versus Zelensky. Vance was kind of like the heavy in the Zelensky meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Like initially, he was there because he was going to lecture Zelensky. Why haven't you thanked us? Obviously Vance is on the more isolationist side of the internal fight in the administration, the more hostile to Ukraine side. So he doesn't get brought here. You bring Rubio and Witkoff, who's kind of like the dupe, who's been taking presents from Putin, like he keeps taking Putin's presents, and then Rubio, who in the past had been tougher on Putin, right, and had been from the different side of MAGA, but since this administration has been very much a supplicant to Trump, and he wants Trump happy, he wants Trump to like him. So if you just kind of think about the lineup there, you're not bringing anybody to do what Vance did to Zelensky to Putin. The opposite, really.
Right. And you're not bringing anyone who knows anything about Russia. Maybe in the delegation, not in the meeting, there are some actual Russia experts. I'm a little dubious based on the general preparations they've not made. So it is pretty, and of course, Witkoff has the meetings with Putin and the Kremlin with literally no embassy person, no translator, no one who actually knows what Putin's talking about. No one, Witkoff doesn't know what parts of Ukraine are which, and maybe Rubio sort of does. So yeah, that's not good. Vance, JV and I guess both of you wrote this maybe a month ago. And I can't remember what the occasion was, and I wrote about a week or two ago on maybe overinterpreting Vance, separating himself from Trump, right? I mean, I think what was the peg? I think with you maybe was that he had seen Murdoch.
It was the Wall
or
Street
something.
Journal piece.
It was the Wall Street Journal
right before
piece.
the Wall Street Journal thing, yeah.
Right, and with mine was the recent failure to defend Trump on Epstein, really conspicuously, I thought, in that interview where he attacks the people who are attacking, of course, Trump, but he doesn't actually say Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Those words.
He gets a lot of Trump has earned the benefit.
The Democrats
from us.
And barely says that even, and mostly it's just Joe Biden that didn't do anything for 4 years, and God knows Bill Clinton's probably in those files. There's never literally a sentence of I have confidence in Donald Trump. So you do wonder, maybe Putin, maybe Vance could have come back if he had asked to. And is perfectly happy to be 3,000
Cotswolds and the Cotswolds. I want to pull up, Jared, if you got this image going around. We mentioned on the intro that the U.S. soldiers literally rolled out the red carpet for Putin's plane, and there's a still image of the soldiers kind of like kneeling at the base of this plane where the steps are. Have you seen this, JVL? Like in kind of setting. So these soldiers are kneeling and kind of setting the carpet down before he comes up. And there's some discussion. Here we go. Here it is. There it is. There it is. And so again, it's not these soldiers' fault. They're doing what they're told to do. But this is an image that's now going viral around Ukrainian social media.
You remember when President Barack
Oh.
Obama inclined at the waist towards the king of Saudi Arabia? Oh my God! Can you believe it? Do you remember that?
Yeah, no, of course he bowed, or the coffee salute that he did. How big of an outrage was. It is. I mean, again, I feel bad for these soldiers, kind of, but what are they? And this is not, you can't think this is unintentional. I mean, not maybe the image of the kneeling is unintentional, but the fact that they did this for him.
They couldn't have had staff do that, right? They had to have uniformed soldiers.
They needed a carpet. I guess my point is, why was the carpet needed? Could he not have come down the stairs and then just walked across the asphalt?
No.
Anyway. No. Putin cannot be made to touch asphalt.
This is Trump's America. It is interesting because I vaguely remember this. I'm trying to think of vice presidential trips. I feel like so many there's sometimes a red carpet, but it's often there ahead of time, and then the plane sort of taxis up, right, and positions itself appropriately. So yeah, the kneeling, maybe they just couldn't do it somehow there, but yeah, it is. That's a terrible photo. You know what I mean?
People were asking. These are our troops. These are not Russian troops. These are our troops.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, yeah. No, it looks. Really stomach churning.
Okay, well, we're gonna wait and hear what more we got to see. Do you want to do any DC talk really quick before I lose you guys? Any sandwich talk?
It's great. It's really safe here. They arrested the guy who threw the sandwich, and so that makes me feel better when he's
been let out of his own recognizance.
I walked back from the comp. Yeah, they sent about 20 people, all geared up to the apartment building. Actually, I'm here in the Bulwark office, Sarah Longwell's, Longwell Partners office, where staffs the Bulwark to some degree, and that's just a couple of blocks from here. The guy lives in an apartment in the West End. He offered to turn himself in, I believe. And they said, no, we're going to come get you. And they came with the TV cameras. Literally like 15 of them in a narrow hallway in one of these apartment buildings at, 23rd and L or something like that.
Assault
right?
with a deli weapon.
Oh, that's good.
If the sandwich had been in a bag, would it have been concealed weapon?
That's good. No,
if it had chips in the bag, would that have been like a bump stock? Do you
have any more, JVL? How many?
Can you guys get the sandwich, man? Aren't you? We're doing a DC event, right? At some point in October, I think. Special guest.
I have taken a lot of heat in the comments on the Secret Podcast today for being pro sandwich guy. And there are a lot of people who are like, "Hey, you can't throwing anything at a cop is dangerous. This is bad. You shouldn't do that." And I'm like, well, I guess, but on the other hand,
is it a felony? I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know. Like. Isn't the absurdity of it
right?
revealing.
The silliness.
Right? Yeah. I mean, it's not even a pie in the face. It's
Yeah.
a freaking Subway sandwich.
It's a little whimsical. I also, I guess I simultaneously do not encourage anyone to throw a sandwich at cops. It seems like you will cause yourselves more harm than good.
Right.
So I can hold these two truths together in my head at the same time, that I do not recommend people do that. And also, I got a huge kick out of Sandwich Man, and I would like to honor him for his service.
What
just to
would
be
you
clear for
guys
people
make
who
of-
don't live in DC, I'm just
Yeah,
this
sure.
was not in some horribly crime-ridden place at a dangerous time where these cops were really, braving the, this was like in a hip area and whatever, and they were pointlessly there harassing people. Though it turns out, can I say one other thing? I was just
Please.
looking at some of the stuff in DC. This is an ICE operation disguised as a sort of crime. The actual numbers, Patel released today's numbers, they were very low. They're actually sort of pathetic given how many people they're deploying in the midst of an alleged crime wave anyway. And one of the felonies arrests of the 16 they and their partners made, the FBI says, is Sandwich Man. That was one of their really important arrests. But this is, I mean, so they're all, but the one thing they are doing, they're stopping dark-skinned people in cars and checking on them. And if they're not legal, they're hauling them off in ICE trucks. I mean, that's so it is, it's very much akin to and part of, in a way, the whole deportation thing, I'd say.
It is, and related to the deportation thing, right? If you look at where they are in DC, because there are different types of race, you could target which types of dark-skinned people you wanted to go in DC, right? Like, it's not, you're not seeing a lot of videos from these cops in Anacostia or in like some of the traditionally black neighborhoods you have, like in Southeast DC, Northeast DC. It is in, touristy areas. And they're stopping the people that are working there, like the dark-skinned, whatever, the immigrants that are working in more upper income neighborhoods, because that is the menace, I guess, that needs to be stopped. It's really sick. She's the worst. It was one of the good things I got Minority Leader Jeffries to say on the pod today, was that if they do take back the House, the first person that will be hauled up there is Kristi Noem, which I appreciated from him. Some of the other stuff we could use a little more gumption, but we're doing what we can. But anything else, guys? We will take a break. The plan for people in the YouTube feed watching is we will go and wait, I guess, for Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin to emerge. They have a joint press conference planned. We've already seen some images of the two podiums there waiting for them. And so at some point during that, if we get too sick to watch anymore, or otherwise at the end of it, if it's brief, some combination of us, maybe Sarah, will be back for analysis. So make sure to touch the little bell there, click the bell, subscribe to the feed, and we'll be back in a little bit.